for number 1.
Sega has an absolutely prolific back catalog. Between their decades of being an arcade powerhouse, console maker, and third-party developer, their library of games is so vast that even a fanatic like myself can miss a few gems. While they're sometimes criticized for relying too much on their past glory, their game collections serve an important role in game preservation and maybe introducing players to some new, old experiences. This is certainly the case for me with Sega 3D Classics Collection. Sega 3D Classics Collection is a compilation of 7 titles plus 3 more for the Master System. The games, most but not all of which are available for download on the Nintendo eShop, run the gamut from arcade to Genesis to new takes on old titles. And as the name suggests, every game has been adapted into 3D by the porting masters at M2. For some of these games, it's hard to imagine them without the 3D effect. It just feels so natural. But others, it's a pleasing addition but doesn't substantially enhance gameplay. Now, I admit I typically play with the 3D turned off. While glassesless 3D was an impressive trick when the 3DS launched, its novelty has worn on me. However, since this is a 3D Classics collection, I did play all the games with the 3D turned on and will provide my unbiased opinion how it affects each game. But before we look at the games, let's talk about presentation. The case features a fun mashup of all the games included in the collection. I just love the adorable bear from Altered Beast in the lower left. I wish more games went to this much effort for their cover art. The back of the case features screenshots of each game, a brief description, and Professor Asobin, an apparent long-forgotten Sega mascot who will provide tips during the loading screens. Such great fan service. My pre-order copy also included a sheet of retro stickers. They're premium quality and very attractive. It's too bad they didn't give 2 sheets, however, because I'd never be willing to remove them from the sheet and ruin their collector's value. Now on to the games, which are a bit hit or miss. First, we have Sonic the Hedgehog, the original Genesis adventure. The game that cemented Sega's presence as a real challenger to Nintendo. The good news is the game plays as well as it ever has. Like your most comfortable pair of pants, this game just fits. After years of playing and replaying, it's almost muscle memory working my way through the stages, but it's still the worst Genesis Sonic title. Why does Sega keep re-releasing this game, but ignoring Sonic 3 and Sonic & Knuckles? The 3D effect complements the gameplay well, but doesn't really add much, with the exception of the already trippy bonus stages, which are even weirder in 3D.
Rise from your grave.
Next, we have Altered Beast. I don't hate this game like everybody else seems to. It's a fine game, and I've always had fun playing it. The iconic Rise from your grave is here, and the music is still fantastic. The 3D effect, however, is probably the weakest out of the 7 main offerings. I had the slider all the way up, which is something I never do, and still didn't feel like the effect was very noticeable. The arcade game Puyo Puyo 2 makes its North American debut in this collection, and it's just great. You wouldn't think the 3D would enhance a puzzle game, but it's actually one of the most pleasing out of all the titles here. It's understated, but there's something satisfying about having the background of the playfield sunk in from the border around it. The Puyo themselves are set about midway between the two, and it gives them a fuller presence. They're not 3D polygons, of course. It would be many years before the Puyo go polygonal, but paired with the subtle shadow they cast on the background, there's a fullness to them that I really like. I recommend playing the game with the 3D slider all the way up. It's unfortunate this isn't the Saturn version, which added a lot of features, but this does have multiplayer and is a lot of fun. Power Drift is a System 16 arcade game that lends itself perfectly to 3D. This is my first time experiencing it. The game must have been truly impressive in 1988. Essentially, your character stays at the same distance from the screen at all times, and the course itself scales towards you to create the illusion of 3D. It's easy to see why M2 selected this game. The effect works exactly as you'd expect and provides real depth to the courses. The game itself is fun, but definitely not the best racer ever. The simulated 3D makes this game a bit disorienting. While you can run off the road, the camera sort of pulls you in the direction you need to go. Still, it's fun, and it was directed and produced by the legendary Yu Suzuki, so it has to be good. Fantasy Zone 2W is an interesting one. It's an original game developed by M2, but designed with most of the limitations of Sega's System 16 arcade hardware. The idea was to create what an arcade port would have been. In this game, you have to guide Opa Opa around the stages, destroying enemies, and then facing very challenging bosses. There's even a store where you can buy upgrades to your ship. The graphics are beautiful and incredibly colorful, which is why many people refer to this as a cute 'em up. You should definitely give this one a try. The 3D is understated but works well. Thunderblade is one of the more well-known arcade titles in the collection and is another one that just feels right in 3D. It's a pretty complex shooter. The perspective shifts on the fly from a top-down view to a behind-the-helicopter view. I find the controls pretty awkward on the 3DS. You control how high the helicopter flies with the D-pad and use the L and R triggers to accelerate and slow down. It definitely takes some getting used to. It should be noted that M2 included the ability to remap the controls, so it's easy to adjust to suit your particular playstyle. The graphics are gorgeous and the 3D effect is phenomenal. Bullets fly directly towards you, it honestly makes the game feel a little more frantic. This is definitely one of the highlights of the collection, I just wish I wasn't so bad at it. And then there's Galaxy Force 2. How could I have lived this long, played this many games, and never heard of Galaxy Force? To be fair, the game's as old as I am, and the area I grew up didn't have a great selection of arcades. But still, there are console ports, and yet this is my first time playing it. But I'm so glad I have. For me, this game justifies my purchase, although it should be noted it can be downloaded individually on the Nintendo eShop. To be clear, the 2 in the title is a bit misleading. This is basically a greatly enhanced version of the original Galaxy Force, but that doesn't matter. All you need to know is this game is amazing. In Galaxy Force 2, you're flying a ship through space. The game uses a similar scaling trick to Thunderblade and Power Drift. Your ship remains a set distance from the screen, and the enemies and environments scale to create the illusion of depth. The 3D effect only enhances this further. There are early hints of Panzer Dragoon in this game also. You can lock onto multiple targets and then fire missiles to destroy them all at once. It's incredibly satisfying. Now, this is an arcade title, so there has to be a mechanic to keep the quarters flowing. Here, it's an energy gauge that constantly depletes. You have to traverse the level as quickly as possible in order to have energy to complete the next one. Bonus energy can be acquired by performing well on a given stage. The game is beautiful, the 3D effect is outstanding. This game is a perfect example of why I love Sega so much. Seriously, play this game. And finally, there's the Master System games. They do call them extras, so you shouldn't complain, but the selection here is fairly weak. It consists of 2 Fantasy Zone games and Maze Walker. Maze Walker is interesting because it was never previously available in the US and was actually 3D even on its original release on the Master System. It's cool that this game is now more accessible to a wider audience, but unfortunately, it's bad. Really bad. The walker in the title is correct. Your character is incredibly slow. The game tries to do some interesting things with distance, but it's mostly just for show. By all means, give the game a try, but I doubt you'll play it for long. Then there's the 2 Fantasy Zone games, Fantasy Zone 1 and 2. It should be noted that 1 is actually hidden. To unlock it, you have to click a certain spot on the menu. For fans of the series, I'm sure these games are an excellent addition to the collection, and the 3D is okay, not great. But for me, I'll stick with Fantasy Zone 2W. So there you have it, that's the Sega 3D Classics collection. Should you buy it? Of course you should. With the exception of Maze Walker, the games range from really good to fantastic. The presentation is top notch. M2 respects the games they work on. They even include extra features in many games, like the ability to switch between the international and Japanese version, and customize the controls. Everything is incredibly polished. Now we just have to hope this sells well enough for Sega to release the other 3D collection in the United States.